All right, let me just backtrack. Yo, I'm back. I promised you that I was gonna give a deeper, in-depth review of Sinners. I went and saw it last Saturday, and I gave my super basic general synopsis of what happened in Sinners and what I felt about the movie. I actually went back and saw it again for the second time, actually in IMAX, just to make sure that I didn't leave any stone unturned. You know, sometimes when people do movie reviews, you know, people may comment and say, "Yo, you didn't see it in IMAX though. You may have missed this, that, and third." So, you know, respected that take. And I was like, "Yo, let me just go see it again." And I don't really go see movies twice in movie theaters, to be honest. Like one and done. After that, we at the crib with it. So, you know, it was a good experience. So this is my more in-depth review of the Sinners movie. Shout out to Ryan Coogler and team for having the wherewithal to produce this piece of art. I'm always appreciative of that. One thing that was super interesting when I went to go to the movie theater, I bought my ticket at the movie theater. You know, when I was buying my ticket, there's this woman who was purchasing her ticket at the same time, and she was so happy to see the movie. She was like, "Oh, I just got back from overseas. I was so mad I couldn't see it overseas. Like, I'm back now." I made sure it was the first thing I did. She was like super proud, just talking about how like Ryan Coogler never directed a bad movie and how Michael B. Jordan is great in everything he's in. And she was like, "Yo, don't you feel the same way?" I'm like, "Yeah," but you know, I was lying. But at the same token, I like their work, so you know, salute to them. I think it's super important for people to be proud to go see art, and I think there just needs to be a bigger influx of of creators who have the ability to showcase their art. Whether that's in movie theaters or some of the other mediums that are there. I think if there were more opportunities for creators to create in spaces where they can get like a worldwide acclaim and get more eyes on their art, I think it would just make for a better place in this little situation that we're in today. Like, you know, I feel like, you know, it's kind of hard, and I said this before, like I didn't want to be extra harsh on the movie because I understand that there's not a lot of melanated directors or melanated producers putting film projects together on a mass scale like this. So like it's kind of, I feel bad like going through with a fine tooth comb and like over judging. I feel like in a sense, and it's not really fair because I feel like the space needs to be inundated with all types of creators, tons of melanated creators, all the artwork being showcased. You need the good, the bad, and the ugly projects from everybody in order to really move forward, and to push the art forward. I don't think it's fair to have one or two films or one or two art pieces be pushed, or one or two artists be pushed, and everybody just is hyper focused on those artists that they get so much criticism. I don't think that's fair for the the art and fair for the genre. So in a sense, like I wish like the film industry was kind of like Tubi, but Tubi with higher production value and greater writing and stuff like that, where it's free for all, where people feel free to showcase their art, and allowing the market to determine the greatness of the art and stuff like that. There just needs to be more of an influx of ideas and people challenging the norms and genre challenging and just more challenging scripts and things of that sort. I think it just would make for a better ecosystem all in all. All right. So I got that out the way. Sinners. Okay, what do I like about the movie? Like I said before, I'm going to double down. It looks amazing. IMAX really brought out all of the, the framing, the color grading. I think the lighting was amazing. The, just the set design, and just all of this stuff that looks visually appealing. They get an A+ on that. I thought it was shot extremely, extremely well. The camera panning and all that stuff was done super dope. What else is there? Also, I liked some of the symbolism in the movie. I think Coogler and team, they left a lot of Easter eggs in it. Usually I like my writing to be like a little bit deeper, but I think for the audience base, it's a good balance of being entertaining and also having particular deeper Easter eggs in there for people to kind of deliberate on and figure out the meanings of stuff and look stuff up and research. I think that's a super important part of art. And in addition to being entertaining, it has to be like informative in a way and give people the fire to go out on their own and kind of figure stuff out. So like this movie in particular, it reminds me kind of like a like when Kendrick dropped songs, you know what I'm saying? And people are going super deep into the lyrics that people who don't really do that, you know what I'm saying? And it I guess for some reason I don't understand yet, but it provokes people to kind of look a little bit deeper just because of I guess the gravitas of the movie and just what it means for people as a whole and things of that sort. So I think that's super positive. What else? There's some themes and some things that happened that I thought were super interesting. I think one of the first things that was pretty interesting was when the vamps when dude first got to the, I guess, quote unquote, the white people's home, or the KKK nephew's home, and he was asking for help. He was being chased or what have you, and he got to the door and he said, he was like, "Oh, help me! They're coming after me." He's like, "Who?" He's like, "The Choctaw." If you know the Choctaw, Choctaw is one of the the 5 quote unquote civilized tribes back in the day. If you do your deep rabbit hole research, who those folks are. And then the guy was like, "You sure those weren't just some fair-skinned niggers? ER." He said, "There's no Choctaw for miles." And I thought that was a super interesting Easter egg. Like, it may seem nuanced, but I think that was particularly put there for a particular reason. So after they let him in, they saw the Native Americans come asking to, if dude was in the crib or whatnot, to like release him to them so they could handle what they had to handle. And they was trying to do that before nightfall. Obviously, they never handed him over. And the vampire obviously did what he did and, took over that whole house and turned everybody in that house. And then, the Native Americans, or the natives, so-called natives, they went back home before night fell, before it got too crazy. So I thought that was interesting because, if you do your history and you kind of look outside of like, your social study books and what we were taught in school, you could kind of find out who the Choctaw were or are, but, the Choctaw don't know that they're Choctaws. That's an interesting, nuanced little Easter egg there, because once you saw those folks, those natives there, they never came back. There was never another mention of them. They did not come back in no scene. They didn't come to save the day, nothing. You know what I'm saying? The guy compared him. He said, "There's no Choctaw here. There's only fair-skinned niggers around here. There's not Choctaw for miles." So if nobody sees Choctaw and the Choctaw are in the space, then what does that mean? Who are the Choctaw? I'm not going to answer that question. But if you go a little deeper into the books, into the reading, I got some books I could reference, you know what I'm saying? Shout out, ask somebody who knows. Everything ain't what it seems. I thought that was a super interesting Easter egg. Another thing that I thought was super interesting that I didn't notice when I first watched the movie. I didn't realize Stack was really a pimp. Like he was pimping. Like, usually you think people from the South, they talk slick, this, that, and the third. They use the slick talking one. Smoke was more so the straight and edge, business oriented, no bullshit type of dude. Stack was the twin that's more like, smooth with it. And he always say like, "Yo, you hating on my pimping, this, that, and da. Once I watched it the second time, I realized that Stack was really pimping. Like, and I think that Stack was pimping Mary. That's why there were so many references to Arkansas, and when they were in the shed during the when they were in the juke joint during everything was happening, and people were paying with promissory notes, you know what I'm saying, from their specific plantation, and Smoke had an issue with it, but Annie and Stack, they're like, come on, man, like let them pay. They've been working all week. Let them pay with their wooden chips or whatever the case may be. Stack wanted the real bread. And when Smoke wanted the real bread. When Smoke pulled Stack into the back room, he's like, let me talk to you. And he was like, yo, were you accepting promissory notes when you was in Arkansas selling ass? He was like, nah, it's a different time. We in Mississippi, it's different. So I was like, oh shit, he was really selling ass in Arkansas, and I think he was selling Mary because there was a whole nuanced situation when, you know, him and Mary had a lot of tension, and he was basically saying that, you know, Mary, you got a husband now, you supposed to be in Arkansas, what are you doing here, burying my mom, all this X, Y, and Z. And he was like, I was trying to keep you safe because walking around with her could be a whole particular issue. And it gives you more of a spotlight on you to be dealt with in a particular way, whether that's by the KKK, the government, all that stuff. But I think Mary was being pimped. That's why he's like, yo, you did what I taught you. You taught me how to fight. Why do you have to teach a girl how to fight? Because it's situational awareness. There was that. She knew how to go get the money. There's an issue because everybody's paying with promissory notes. The budget showed that they were going to be broke in a month or two or whatever Smoke said. So Mary went out to go see the Vamps when they came by the club. And when they were sitting on the corner or what have you, and they gave her some gold, right? And she went to go get the money. So she's all about getting the money. You feel me? So I could see that she was being pimped by Stack, but they still have that super duper love, interest, intertangling and all that. I think another interesting point is that there was a super interesting dynamic with money in this film. So like what I just mentioned before, going from promissory notes, so the sharecroppers were getting their own particular money, you know what I mean? It wasn't U.S. legal tender, it wasn't dollars, it was like more so plantation money that was good on the plantation, right? The twins, they left the plantation and went up to Chicago. They went to the military. They traveled the world. And then they learned the value of U.S. dollars, right? So if you're traveling nationally, the U.S. dollar at that particular time, pre-1933, you know, could be redeemed for, you know, gold and all that certain stuff. So that was interesting on his particular take because Smoke wanted the money. He wanted the money. He was like, this, you know, this Mississippi money ain't good. This Delta bread ain't good. I need the real dollars. And then the vampires, they had gold. So like it was an interesting dynamic between the three things. So so U.S. dollars, legal tender can be redeemed for gold, right? And then the plantation money is plantation money only to be used on the plantation. So when you left the plantation money has no use, right? But if you leave, you know, particularly U.S. or, you know, certain time periods, the dollar doesn't have a value, but gold always has a value. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic. And by the way, this is all stuff that I took in. I didn't look at nobody's synopsis. I didn't read nothing. I ain't look up nothing. I don't know what nobody said about nothing, bro. This is just me. Also another thing I caught was that the twins, they were actual they was really gangsters, to be honest. They were working with Al Capone when they were in Chicago. I thought that was an interesting nuanced thing too, because during the time Al Capone, you know, big mobster, mob gangster, whatever the case may be. So they was running with him in Chicago, and the reason why they had all that alcohol, whether it was Irish beer or Italian wine, was because they somehow they put the Irish and the Italian against each other in Chicago, and then they stole from them and then brought it back home south. So, you know, that was an interesting nuance. There was something else about that as well. Damn, what is it? Hold up. Yeah, okay, yeah. So they did that whole thing. I thought that was interesting. Um, I like the historical narrative. Like even like from a greater standpoint, like when you think of if when you think of the inception of corporatized music and how the music industry became a thing here in the Americas, it was because of prohibition. Prohibition made music corporatized. So just the same way you seen it in the movie, folks would try to sell, prohibition liquor at having juke joints, right? Because it was pretty much outlawed. But in order to get people to get the liquor, they would have to bring artists in there, to as the main attraction. And when you look at it now, the music industry is used to sell products on the grandest level. It's like a big marketing billboard or whatever the case may be, a big advertisement. And the same way that they were using artists to promote prohibition liquor, they're doing the same thing now, whether it was the Jay-Z Chris Dahl era, whether it's the Rick Ross Bel Air, or it's the Ciroc Boys and Diddy, or whether it's the all that stuff, or whether it's a weed brand or whatever. But music was used to sell products, and that's what it was in the inception. And I think it kind of went over people's heads, or people don't really realize that. And it's used to control people. Obviously, you could see that in the movie. Sammy's voice brought the the evil entities to the juke joint, but it also brought everybody together. I thought the scene was super dynamic. Y'all know what scene I'm talking about, when the music kind of transcended all these different generations and genres, and it showed everybody coming together. And basically, music kind of transcends time and space. I thought that was pretty cool. That was probably like the best shot, or the most dynamic shot in the entire movie. What else is there? Something else about that? What else I got? I got some other shit. And I didn't look over none of these notes. Yo. I was up there just writing, scribble scrabble. One thing I thought was super dope, and it's dope because it's something that me and the homies did, or we used to do back in the day when we was throwing parties. So when the twins copped the shed to throw a party in it, it was like in the morning. By the nighttime, they had the joint all lit up. It looked like a spot that could. In the morning time, it didn't look like shit. At night, it really looked like it was going down in there, and it was going down in there. I remember, me and the homies, shout out to the crew, all the homies. We used to throw events all the time, crazy. Used to go OD in New York and all around. There was one specific party we threw, which was a New Year's party, and we threw it at this. It was like a gym for people that are like trapeze artists, or that do aerial acrobatics and stuff like that. But when we showed up in the morning, the spot is mats everywhere. There's ropes hanging. We looked at. I remember shout out to Bryson. I looked at Bryson. We in the spot. I'm like, yo, how are we gonna throw the parties in like 12 hours? How are we gonna throw a party in here? So people were still training. By the time we got there, they had to pack up training. We just started picking up bags, moving stuff around, throwing, just cleaning up, trying to make it look presentable. So when we got all of our party favors, all of our decorations and stuff, it would go in there and everything would look presentable, because we sold out. Our tickets, we sold out. I don't know how many people was in that party. Was crazy. I might have to repost a video from there or something. But it was OD. And I remember just panicking, like, damn, what we gonna do, bro? I don't think we got enough time to clean this spot up, decorate it, go home, change, make sure we're back in time to make sure people get in. It was crazy, but all in all, it all came together. We came back, everything was done, and it was just like, damn, that was like damn near a miracle. And it kind of reminded me of that. What else is there, dog? Oh, I thought it was interesting when Delta Slim, he was talking about music, and he was talking about how the blues wasn't forced on us like religion was, and he said we brought this from home when he was talking to Sammy, basically talking when Sammy was in kind of a dilemma, talking about his, the church and music and stuff like that. And it's an interesting dynamic because I think that was a poignant point. Like religion was forced on people. It was forced on people, and people accepted it, and they find solace in religion, which I don't find there's any issue with. I think in life, right, you have to use the tools that you have to your benefit and not your detriment. So everything out here out here is a tool. It's not necessarily good or bad, but how you use it, it could be, either beneficial or detrimental to you. So that's kind of how I like kind of navigate the space. And I don't curse religion or anything like that. I think it's situational. If it works for you, you use it for what you need to use it for, then that's a blessing. But yeah, I thought it was super poignant. I think music is something that's outside of religion, and it's outside of all of these constructs because it exists across cultures, across borders, and everybody on earth, plays music, listens to music, and it's a soul thing. Religion can be a soul thing, but I don't know if it necessarily is. I think music and the vibratory experiences is definitely a soul experience, which was a good quote. Yeah, it was interesting when the Chinese people, that whole situation, how they had multiple stores. One store was catered to the melanated people, and the other store was catered to the pilgrims. You feel me? I thought that was an interesting dynamic. Like the Chinese have two stores, and it served two different folks on two different sides of the street. There's some, you could decipher what you want with that. To double back on what I said about the religion thing, I thought it was interesting where Sammy, at the end, where Sammy was in the water and he was trying to get away from, little vampire demon homie, and the demon had him by his head or whatever, and Sammy started saying the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, and then he started going in on that, and then the demon vampire homie started joining in and saying the rest of the words, as well as the rest of the other vampires. They all in unison started saying the Lord's Prayer, and I thought it was interesting because the vampire, he said the people that stole my father's land, they were reciting these basically these prayers or what have you. And he said, it still gives me comfort. It doesn't do anything, but it still gives me comfort. So it was like, oh, okay. So it wasn't necessarily, okay, boom. So Sammy did that to save himself, right? The Lord's Prayer. But it didn't do nothing. Like the demons and the vampires, they joined in as well. And it wasn't until Sammy took the guitar and hit him in the head with the guitar that it stopped the vampire. So it was like an interesting duality between religion and music for his own particular salvation. And when the silver disc got lodged in homie head, it slowed the vampire down until enough for smoke to come and drive a stake through homie. And that was interesting. So that was an interesting duality. Another duality theme, was I guess that's what the whole movie is. There's a lot of dualities. They got the twin brothers. You have music and religion. You had Sammy's dad and the twins' dad, who were brothers. One went to the church, the other one went, was a musician. So, that was interesting as well. Just you could just see like the dynamics of family. The vampires always said, "Come on, it's all about let's do everything together. It's all about let's fellowship and do all this shit. And it's kind of interesting because people always talking this, we are the world situation, but you see that you get lulled into a particular situation that you probably don't want to, see yourself in or what have you. And once you're in that, there's a hive mindset. So like the vampires, they were super hive minded. They said, yo, I know what he's thinking. We share the same thoughts. We're good forever. So listen, if you're out there and you echoing everybody's thoughts, better check yourself, man. You never know. It could be a vampire. Yeah, and with family as well, you saw Smoke ended up dying the natural way, and was able to meet Annie and his child in the afterlife with the ancestors and this and the third, whereas Stack ended up with Mary as vampires, and they kind of transcended time and spent their time together. It was interesting because earlier in the movie, right? Let me see. Earlier in the movie, when Stack and Mary met each other at the train station, then they started arguing, and she was basically saying like, you fucked me good and this, that, and the third, and you left in the middle of the night, and I haven't seen you 7 years, and I thought you was going to come back, and you lied, all this and the third, and they started going crazy, going back and forth, blah, blah, blah. And she said, go to hell, like, and then Stack was like, he said, I'll save you a spot, and he said, I'll save you a spot in hell right next to me. And then it's kind of interesting because they're like in hell forever, subjugated to being vampires throughout time. So I think that was interesting foreshadowing. What else? There's a lot of other stuff, but I don't want to just beat a dead horse. Let me see. It was okay. The dynamic of Roots and Hoodoo, I thought that was interesting. You saw a lot of elements of that, whether it's the Mojo bag that Annie made for Smoke, and you notice that Smoke survived with the Mojo bag throughout life. He was the only person who had a Mojo bag on, and he's the one that survived to the end. And it wasn't until he took the Mojo bag off his neck and started airing out the clan members, then he got shot and he got hit, and then that's when he saw his demise or what have you. So I thought that was an interesting element in terms of Hoodoo. Also, when Annie, they were trying to figure out what they were gonna do with the vampires outside and stuff like that, she did like a divination with, I don't know, like it seemed like seeds or fucking bottle caps and clippers and all that. She shook them up and threw it across the dice board or what have you. And she did it a couple times. And when she did it, she realized, like, that's when she told him, like, yo, promise me that you're going to stab me with a stake through the heart, because I don't want to live like that vampire shit. I want to be sent home. And she did a divination to see that. And I thought that was kind of interesting as well. And it's funny because Smoke doesn't believe in that, but he believed in it. It's a weird dynamic. And it's like, all right, is that like a cultural spirituality versus, Christianity and religion? Like, how's it kind of balanced out? Another nuanced thing is how when Smoke went to the Chinese shop and he was trying to order the catfish. He was also trying to order a sign for the event, and the Chinese woman, I don't know her name. I don't remember her name. I'm sorry, but she was I guess she does the sign designs, and she was like, we only got red. I thought that was interesting too. I don't know if it's because the dynamic of paint the town red, or symbology with red can mean like it could be a bad omen, things bloody or whatever the case may be. Or even one thing I thought too, I didn't do my extensive research. I'm just talking to y'all, but I thought it could have been like if y'all may know, y'all may maybe correct me, the people that are super heavy in the Bible, but like Passover sign. I think Passover had something to do with like, the red signs or whatever in the Bible. And I don't know. I just thought that it kind of stuck out the second time I watched it. What else, bro? What else? I also thought it was interesting that Pauline, married chick that was messing with Sammy. Yo, when it went down, like she was stabbing people in the heart with the stake, but that shit ain't never work. I had a question about that. Like I watched that, I'm like, yo, why whenever she stabs somebody, they just keep going, or they eat it like and then they don't really do nothing. I don't know. It was interesting. And yeah, the last thing I would say without going too deep, I've seen some other stuff. I don't want to go too deep because it's been a half an hour, but I thought it was interesting when the Klan dude that they bought the spot from, and he came back to come back and collect his spot, and Lynch dude and Smoke shot him up or whatever the case may be. When he's dying, he's like, yo, like I got money. It's like it's this dynamic of money, thinking money can save you all the time. He tried to offer Smoke money so he didn't die, and like Smoke tried to throw the juke joint party to get money. And it's like this dynamic of money being the centralized theme to, particular demise or wanting money. Sammy just liked playing, and he wasn't even making any money off playing. He had that conversation with Mary about playing when she first came into the juke joint, and she said, I'm going to buy you a drink. She said, I would tell you to keep playing. She asked him if he was making any money playing the guitar. He was like, nah, not really. She's like, I would tell you to just play it because you love it, but that's not going to be worth a damn. And it's just like doing things because you love them versus doing things because you're getting paid for them, I think is super interesting too. And I think that's a dynamic that a lot of people struggle with, because it's like, how do you assimilate in society and not have bread, but how do you also do what you love and are able to support yourself and feeling fulfilled? Like it's like a certain dynamic. Like I look at the folks that were, the vampires and stuff like that. They were all, it's like it's like people around you. It's like even like the vampires, like close people that you just was close with them your whole life, and then now they switched and now they're this thing or this corporate thing or this thing with a title that's trying to tell you how to live your life or maneuver. And it's like if you step outside, you kind of lose that essence or that soul or that thing that you have. You might be corporatized, and you might have a bag, but you don't got that essence no more. And I think that's an interesting dynamic too, like balancing that. I don't know, like it was just cool. But yeah, I don't know. I'm up on my time. I could do a deeper dive with like, this, that, and the third, the numbers said this and that, but I don't feel like doing that. Maybe I might put it on Patreon or something. But yeah, that's my No Fant review of Sinners. Shout out to Ryan Coogler. Shout out to Michael B. Jordan. Shout out to everybody that had something to do with the movie. Shout out to everybody that watched the movie, man. We need more people to create more stuff so we could just keep going crazy in the space, and you can inspire people to do more shit. Facts. But that's it. I ain't